Here's where we are. We are about to hear brief closing statements from each debater in turn. These closing statements will be 2 minutes each. Remember, you voted before the debate. We're going to have you vote again immediately afterwards. And the team that has moved its numbers the most in percentage point terms will be declared our winner. On to round 3, closing statements. Our motion is, cutting the Pentagon's budget is a gift to our enemies. Here to summarize, we do all of the closing statements will all be seated. Corey, thanks. Here to summarize her position against this motion, Corey Shockey, a research fellow at the Hoover Institute.
So spending is an input measure. It's one thing you do to create an outcome that you want. And to argue that constraining one element of why the United States is so dominant and so powerful and such a force for good in the world, that constraining that one element will in fact be a gift to our enemies, dramatically understates all the other things that go into America being a dominant power. The innovation that you talked about, the economic strength that you talked about, the value of our ideas, the extent to which who we are and what we are willing to fight for in the world reshapes other people's sense of their possibilities and their future. There are a lot of reasons the United States is powerful and admired and feared in the world. And defense spending, a small cut on the margin of that, is actually not going to have a major perturbation of effect on it. That in fact, spending is much too crude a measure by which to determine whether or not that the United States is giving gifts to our enemies. It's too small a factor in the overall constellation of who the United States is and why it's powerful and dominant in the international order. And that in order to accept our opponent's proposition, you would have to believe that a small change at the margin of a very large defense budget of a very good military would in fact have a major influence on the calculations of America's enemies in the world. And Ben and I are trying to argue that it's a more complicated calculation than that. More things go into it, and that we need to think in a broader term, and you can accept many of the very good arguments that Andy and Tom
Corey
made.
Shockey, I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you very much. Ladies
And
and
still
gentlemen,
vote for our
Shockey.
measure.
The motion is cutting the Pentagon's budget is a gift to our enemies, and here to summarize his position in support of this motion, Thomas Donnelly. He's co-director of the Marilyn Ware Center for Security Studies at the American Enterprise Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Donnelly.
Well, thanks to you all for listening to this sometimes unhappy and complex debate. I still think that the basic proposition is pretty simple and straightforward. And I guess that's why I'm not a political scientist and I'm more of an historian, because that's the experience and the measures, the outputs by which I would judge this proposition. Corey keeps talking about Americans building a better mousetrap. The world that we have built over the last 7 decades is a really good mousetrap. It's a complex mousetrap, as Corey suggested. There are lots of things that go into making the liberal peace. But it's not a liberal peace that invented itself. The Europeans didn't, after 5 centuries of slaughtering one another and slaughtering the rest of the peoples in the world, decide, get all together and say, you know, I think we should cut this out. Neither did the Imperial Japanese. They were defeated in war by the United States, and because of that, they've become liberal democracies, and pretty peaceful ones too. So I don't know what the marginal difference will be, but it's not an experiment that I want to make. We've seen what's happened with the marginal cuts of the last couple of years. We see what's happening in Syria today. We see the Chinese messing about in the South China Sea. Are they coming to our shores tomorrow? No. But let's not let it come to that point. A marginal difference. We don't want to know where the last margin of safety is. It's better to have more margins of safety than less, and that's really what this proposition comes down to.
Thank you, Thomas Donnelly. Our motion is cutting the Pentagon's budget is a gift to our enemies, and here to summarize his argument against this motion, Benjamin Friedman, a research fellow at the Cato Institute.
Well, for the record, I'm for World War II. I think that was a good move for us to fight that, so let's not say that we oppose that. Look, my argument is it has two parts. Number one, we can do a lot. We can save a lot of money while doing all the things we do in the world. If you think we're the agents of history and everything in the world is great because of us, fine. Go listen to some of the recommendations out there on how to cut the defense budget by 50 or 60 billion, and you can do it, okay? You can cut the defense budget and still have all these alliances. My own view is these alliances and a lot of stuff we're doing in the world are actually bad for our security, so we'd be even better off if we could get out of the business of trying to run everyone else's security for them. Pax Britannica, Pax Americana, a lot of other things were happening in the world at that time. A lot has changed. It's a disservice to history to say that there's only one factor that matters, which is whether or not there's a hegemon that's trying to manage international affairs. There's a variety of reasons, changes in the international system that encourage peace, absent the benevolence of the United States of America. So I think what we have today is a luxury budget. It's not a defense budget. It protects our safety in the same way a billionaire's restaurant choices prevent his starvation. There's a lot of room in there for us to be safe and cut. So I think cuts to the Pentagon are a gift to ourselves. They'll make us a bit richer, and in the long term, by inducing some choices that we've avoided in the defense budget, they might make us reconsider some policies that actually erode our security and get us into trouble. And that's why cutting the defense budget is not a gift to our enemies.
Thank you. Benjamin Friedman. Our motion is cutting the Pentagon's budget is a gift to our enemies, and here to summarize his position in support of this motion, Andrew Krepinevich, president of the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments.
One way to think about your vote is if Vladimir Putin were here tonight, or the senior generals of the PLA, or the Ayatollah Khamenei, how would they be voting, do you think? The issue we debate here tonight is very real for me. For 25 years, I wore the uniform of a soldier. And in the 1973 Middle East War, we were one order short of arming nuclear warheads. But we were trained, we were equipped, we were ready. 2 years later, in 1975, I was stationed along the demilitarized zone in Korea when the North Koreans were digging tunnels underneath us and trying to intercept the resupply ships we were sending out to some of the islands off the coast of South Korea. But we had confidence in our equipment. We had well-trained troops. We weren't looking forward to a scrape, but we were ready. Only 2 years later, after the results of Watergate and Vietnam and inflation and oil shocks really hit home, I was in a unit where we couldn't train, where our troops were hiding toilet paper because we couldn't get toilet paper for our troops, where some of my best soldiers were leaving the Army because they had no faith that the American people were willing to provide what was necessary for us to be a ready unit. And I say, thankfully, we were not put to the test. We recovered, but it was a very expensive proposition in the early 1980s to put Humpty Dumpty back together again after the military was broken. We were lucky. I wouldn't want to risk our security or our economic well-being on luck, and certainly not the lives of our young men and women in uniform. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew Krepinevich. And that concludes our closing statements. And now it's time to see which side you feel has argued the best. We want to have you go again to the keypad at your seat to register your vote. You voted before the debate. We're going to have you vote again now. And the team that has moved its numbers the most in percentage point terms will be declared our winner. Press 1 if you are in support of the motion, 2 if you are against it, 3 if you are undecided. The motion is cutting the Pentagon's budget is a gift to our enemies. It looks like everybody's ready. We're going to have the results. I'm going to announce the results in about 2 minutes from now. But first, we regret that Senator McCain has a day job. We don't regret it. Actually, we're glad he's doing his day job. He's there doing it now. He wasn't able to make it, sends his regrets, but we want to bring back to the stage in his place Ambassador Kurt Volker.
Okay. Thank you. So before we get the results of the voting, I just want to raise one question of my own. Was this the best, most illuminating discussion of our defense budget cuts that you have heard in this town in a long time? And also, is John Donovan the best moderator you've seen do this? Now, what we got here is a lot of the issues that are going to come out. The fact is we are cutting our defense budget. And the fact is we're going to have to face a lot of choices about what that means and how we manage it. And I think you heard tonight a lot of the things that we're going to be thinking about in the months ahead as we have to work through that process. So I want to thank all of you again for coming this evening, and I want to apologize on behalf of Senator McCain that indeed he does have a day job. I was going to say unfortunately he's stuck working on immigration, but actually I feel fortunately he's working on immigration. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Kurt Volker. And just a couple of announcements. We'd love it if you tweeted about this debate. Our Twitter handle is @IQ2US, @McCain Institute, and #Pentagon. Thank you again to the McCain Institute team. We really, really enjoyed partnering with you on this. It's been a terrific partnership, and I think we both gained out of it. Also want to thank WAMU, which carries almost all of our debates and was very involved in letting a lot of you know about this debate, and obviously they got through to you because the place is full, and we're delighted by that. This was our 75th debate since Bob Rosencrantz brought Intelligence Squared to the United States, and we are happy to be sharing this milestone with everybody here. Our fall season in New York starts in September. Some of the topics that we're going to be looking at include drones, breaking up the big banks, the case for going vegan. That's not a Washington topic. Gun control and immigration. Our tickets go on sale later on this summer. For more information and to purchase tickets, visit our website at www.iq2us.org. And don't forget to visit the McCain Institute for International Leadership's website, and that is at mccaininstitute.org for all of their upcoming events. They have a full schedule, constantly things happening here in Washington, D.C. We wanted to encourage you to take a look at the encyclopedia and look at Dwight Eisenhower, circa 1939. We actually pulled the photograph. We've looked at it, but I don't want to bring it up on the screen without your permission. Go ahead, we have your permission. Switched at birth or what? All right, thank you for being a good sport. That was great. All right. I now have the final results. You have voted twice, once before the debate and once again afterwards after hearing all of the arguments. Here is the result. The motion, cutting the Pentagon's budget, is a gift to our enemies. Before the debate and polling the live audience, 22% of you agreed with the motion, 57% were against, and 21% were undecided. Those are the first results. Remember now, the team, after you voted the second time, the team that has changed the most numbers in percentage point terms is declared our winner. On to the second vote. Cutting the Pentagon's budget is a gift to our enemies. The team arguing for the motion in the second vote went from 22% to 29%. They picked up 7 percentage points. That is the number to beat, 7 percentage points. Now, the team against the motion in the first vote was 57%. The second vote, 65%. That is 8 percentage points. It's enough to win, just barely. The team arguing against the motion that cutting the Pentagon's budget is a gift to our enemies has been declared our winner. Congratulations to them, and thank you from me, John Donvan. We'll see you next time.